The morning that changed everything started like any other. Ava Kingsley, the only daughter of a billionaire developer, scrolled through her phone as a driver pulled up to St. Helena's Private Academy. Her world was polished marble floors and diamond smiles. Yet inside, she felt a hollow echo she could never name. The world adored her beauty, her money, her privilege, but none of it felt real. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Lily Parker wiped sleep from her eyes, tying her faded apron before the bakery's shutters creaked open. Her mother's cough echoed from the tiny room they shared, a reminder that dreams didn't pay rent. Lily had learned to smile through hunger, to work through pain. She didn't have much, but she had love, and that, somehow, still felt rich. Their paths crossed by chance, or maybe by fate. When St. Helena's hosted a charity program inviting public school volunteers to help organize an event, Lily applied, hoping for a small stipend to buy her mother's medicine. Ava didn't care about the event, until her father insisted she attend, saying it would be good for her image. When they met, it was like mirrors colliding. Ava saw in Lily's eyes something she'd never seen before, quiet strength. Lily saw in Ava's face a life she could never imagine, effortless, beautiful, untouchable. Must be nice, Lily muttered softly as Ava's chauffeur handed her a latte. Ava frowned. What? Having someone care enough to drive you everywhere. Ava hesitated, unsure whether to feel insulted or guilty. They spent the day side by side, arranging flowers, setting up tables, pretending not to notice how different they were. But by sunset, something unexpected happened. When a box of decorations toppled from the top shelf, Lily instinctively shielded Ava, taking the hit on her arm. You could have been hurt. Ava gasped. I'm fine. Lily smiled through the pain. Guess I'm used to heavy things. That one act, small, unspoken, cracked something open in Ava. For the first time, she felt something real. Not pity, not admiration, just gratitude. Later that night, Ava couldn't stop thinking about her. She thought of the bruise forming on Lily's arm, the quiet way she endured it. And in that stillness of thought, an idea formed. Wild, reckless, but thrilling. What if we switched lives? Ava whispered to her reflection in the mirror, just for a few days to see what it's like. The next morning, she found Lily waiting outside the bakery, arms dusted in flour. Lily, she said, her voice trembling with excitement, I have a crazy idea. Lily blinked. You mean the event? No, I mean our lives. You and me, just for 2 days. Lily laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Ava's expression stayed firm. I'm serious. You'll stay at my house, wear my clothes, meet my friends. And I'll stay here, at your place, just for 2 days. No cameras. No one has to know. Why would you even want that? Lily asked, her tone sharp but curious. Because I don't know who I am anymore, Ava said quietly. And maybe you can remind me. There was silence, the kind that makes hearts beat louder. Lily shook her head. You wouldn't last a day. Then prove me wrong. Ava smiled. 2 lives, 2 worlds, about to collide in ways neither could imagine. Lily stared at Ava, half amused, half bewildered. The girl standing before her didn't look like someone who'd ever swept a floor or counted change for bread. Yet, her voice carried a strange sincerity, the kind Lily hadn't heard in a long time. Fine, Lily finally said, crossing her arms. But don't blame me when you break a nail. Ava grinned, almost relieved. Deal. They planned it in secret. No one would know. 2 girls from opposite ends of life, trading places like a reckless social experiment. That night, Ava snuck into Lily's apartment, carrying a small bag of plain clothes she'd borrowed from her housekeeper. The tiny space smelled of baked bread and detergent, its walls cracked but alive with warmth. A photo of Lily's mother sat on the nightstand, her smile kind despite the illness that shadowed her face. This is home, Lily said softly. It's not much. It's more real than anything I've ever had, Ava whispered. Meanwhile, Lily entered the marble halls of the Kingsley mansion. The chandeliers shimmered above her like frozen sunlight. Every corner gleamed. She almost forgot to breathe. The maids bowed slightly as she walked past. She didn't correct them. For one night, she would taste what it felt like to be seen, not for her struggle, but for her existence. The next morning, the experiment began. Ava woke to the creak of Lily's warm bed and the smell of bread rising in the oven. She tied her hair back, pulled on Lily's apron, and stepped into a world that had never waited for her. Within minutes, she burned her hand on a baking tray and dropped a loaf. The shopkeeper yelled. The customers laughed. Ava blinked hard to keep the tears from falling. "Keep moving," the older woman at the counter said. "Tears don't pay bills." Ava nodded. Her manicured hands trembled as she took money, counted change, and tried to smile. By noon, she was exhausted, but something inside her shifted. Every thank you, every smile from the customers felt like tiny sparks of something she'd forgotten. Connection. Lily, meanwhile, woke in a silk bed. Sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains as servants stood waiting. She didn't know what to do with them. She wandered through the enormous house, touching the gold frames and expensive vases, feeling both powerful and painfully alone. Ava's friends came by around noon, girls with glossy hair and sharper tongues. "Lily," one of them called, mistaking her for Ava. "You look different today." Lily smiled awkwardly. "Guess I just woke up grateful." The girls laughed, but for the first time, it wasn't cool. There was something disarming in Lily's authenticity that Ava's friends couldn't quite name. When lunch arrived, Lily sat before a table overflowing with dishes she couldn't pronounce. She took a single bite, then pushed the plate away. "Does she really live like this every day?" she whispered. That evening, both girls faced their first kindness. At the bakery, Ava's hand shook as she carried a tray to an old woman who struggled to count her coins. "Don't worry," Ava said softly. "This one's on me." The woman looked up, eyes glistening. "You're an angel, dear." Ava smiled, her chest tightening. No one had ever called her that before. Meanwhile, Lily walked to Kingsley Garden and found the mansion's gardener, a man in his 60s, hands rough from decades of pruning roses. When he tripped over a hose, Lily rushed to help him up. "Careful," she said, steadying him. He smiled, surprised. "Miss Ava never helps. You must be having a good day." Lily looked away. "Maybe I'm just finally seeing people." By nightfall, both girls had changed, just slightly, invisibly, like hearts learning new rhythms. Lily lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning. Ava curled up beside the small window of Lily's apartment, the hum of the city lulling her into a strange calm. They didn't know it yet, but the next day would test everything they believed about kindness, identity, and truth. If you were there in that bakery or that garden, what would you have done? Would you help a stranger, even when no one was watching? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if you've ever been moved by simple kindness, just hit like to keep that light alive. The following morning, rain drummed softly against the city rooftops. Ava woke to the sound of coughing, Lily's mother, struggling in the next room. Panic flickered through her as she hurried over, unsure what to do. The woman smiled faintly. "You must be Lily's friend," she whispered. "Thank you for staying with her last night." Ava froze. She wanted to explain, but something in the woman's frail voice stopped her. She nodded instead and helped her drink water. Her manicured fingers trembled as she steadied the glass, a small act, but one that made her heart ache in ways she couldn't name. Back in the mansion, Lily's morning began differently. She was served breakfast in bed, croissants, fruits, and a gleaming silver pot of coffee. But the silence of the house pressed against her. The only sounds were her own chewing and the ticking of an antique clock. For the first time, she realized wealth could be deafening. She decided to go out. Wearing Ava's clothes, soft cashmere, expensive boots, she stepped into the world that had always ignored her. People noticed her now. Shopkeepers smiled wider, doors opened faster. The same faces that once looked through her now saw her as someone worth pleasing. The realization sank deep. It wasn't her. It was a money stitched into her clothes. Later that afternoon, Lily found herself in a cafe where Ava's friends were gossiping again. She sat quietly, listening. I can't believe Ava's dad still funds that charity thing. Waste of time. One girl sneered. Lily clenched her jaw. Maybe it's not a waste if it helps someone breathe easier, she said softly. The table fell silent. Then one girl shrugged. Wow. Someone's deep today. Lily smiled faintly. Maybe I just woke up human. At that same moment, Ava was learning what human really meant. She'd burned her hand again trying to help at the bakery. The customers had thinned out, and rain leaked through a hole in the ceiling. Lily's mother sat nearby, watching Ava clean up the mess. "You've got kind hands," the woman said gently. "Not made for hard work, but they are trying." Ava looked up, surprised by the warmth in her tone. "I don't think I've ever done something that mattered," she admitted. The woman chuckled softly. "Every loaf you bake, every smile you share, it matters. Money fades, my dear, but goodness lingers." Ava bit her lip, holding back tears. She wasn't used to being seen, not as an heiress, not as an image, just as a person. When night fell, both girls sat in front of mirrors, miles apart, staring at faces that no longer looked the same. Ava's hair was messy, flowers streaked her cheek, but her eyes finally looked alive. Lily's reflection, on the other hand, wore perfection like a mask that didn't fit. Lily opened Ava's drawer and found a small box tucked behind perfumes. Inside was a photo, a younger Ava between her parents, all smiling. But there was something odd. The mother's eyes were tired, and the father's hand gripped Ava's shoulder too tightly. A note beneath it read, "For appearances, always smile." Lily exhaled slowly. So, even in that mansion of gold, pain had built its own home. Later, a maid entered with a worried expression. "Miss Ava, your father called. He wants to speak tonight." Lily hesitated. "Tell him I'll call back," she said quietly. The thought of pretending to be someone else in that cold voice terrified her. Meanwhile, Ava sat by Lily's mother, who had fallen asleep. She looked around the tiny apartment. The cracked tiles, the peeling wallpaper, the warmth that filled every empty corner. She smiled sadly. "She lives like this every day," Ava whispered to herself. "And she still manages to smile." That night, as the city lights dimmed, both girls lay awake, hearts tangled in confusion and awe. What started as a game was becoming something sacred, a mirror of truths they hadn't wanted to see. And for the first time, both prayed silently, not for wealth, not for freedom, but for understanding. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. The next morning arrived with sunlight breaking through thin curtains, golden, fragile, almost hesitant. Ava blinked awake on Lily's narrow bed, her body sore but her spirit strangely full. She had spent 2 nights in this tiny apartment, and yet it felt more like home than the mansion ever had. She could smell fresh bread baking and hear laughter from the street below. It wasn't luxury, but it was life, noisy, raw, and real. Lily's mother stirred, her voice faint. "You're up early again, Lily." Ava smiled softly, kneeling beside her. "There's a lot to do," she whispered, adjusting the blanket. The woman reached out and touched her cheek, a mother's instinct recognizing kindness even beneath the disguise. "You've changed," she murmured. "Something in your eyes, softer now." Meanwhile, across the city, Lily faced her first real storm in Ava's world. She had woken to the sound of Ray's voices echoing through the marble halls. Ava's father stood in the living room, pacing furiously with his phone. "I told the board we'd donate only for publicity, not for charity," he barked. "Where is she? Ava never misses meetings like this." Lily stepped in carefully, heart pounding. I'm here." He turned, eyes sharp as glass. "You're late." "I wanted to make sure the staff were paid properly," Lily said without thinking. "They work so hard." His brows furrowed. "What did you just say?" "Nothing, sir. Just trying to help." He studied her, confused by this unfamiliar version of his daughter. Humble, gentle, thoughtful. Then, without another word, he left. Lily exhaled shakily, her palms sweating. "How does Ava survive this?" she whispered to herself. The mansion suddenly felt colder. By afternoon, she escaped to the city streets, craving noise, craving something real. She wandered into the bakery district, unknowingly passing just 1 block away from Ava. They were breathing the same air, yet living entirely different truths. Ava, still behind the counter, smiled at a little boy who offered her a drawing, 2 stick figures holding bread. "That's you," he said proudly. And my grandma, she says you're a favorite girl. Ava's throat tightened. Thank you, sweetheart. When the day ended, the bakery owner approached her. You worked hard today. Hey, take this. He handed her a loaf wrapped in brown paper. For your kindness. Ava hesitated. I can't. You can, he said simply. We need more people like you around. She walked home through the dusky streets, the bread warm against her palms, tears pressing behind her eyes. She didn't realize how much a small gesture could weigh, not because it was heavy, but because it was pure. At the same hour, Lily returned to the mansion to find a message on Ava's laptop, an email from a children's shelter thanking her for past donations. It was the first time Lily had seen a glimpse of Ava's real heart beneath the image. She clicked reply, writing softly, We'll send more help soon. They deserve it. Her finger hovered before pressing send. Something inside whispered that kindness didn't need permission. That night, both girls looked out of their respective windows, one small, one grand, feeling the same ache. The world outside glowed with street lights and stars, and somewhere in between, they were learning what it truly meant to live as someone else. And then, a thought came to Lily, fragile yet fierce. What if we didn't just switch lives for 2 days? What if we actually changed them? The next evening arrived like a whisper before a storm. Ava had grown used to the rhythm of Lily's life, the bakery's clatter, the quiet kindness of neighbors, the way exhaustion somehow carried peace. But that night, peace shattered when Lily's mother collapsed. It happened suddenly. One moment she was talking, the next, her voice cut off mid-sentence. Ava froze. Mrs. Parker, she cried, shaking her shoulder. Panic clawed up her throat. She grabbed the phone and called an ambulance, her voice trembling. Please hurry, she's not breathing right. Sirens wailed through the narrow streets minutes later. Ava rode with her to the hospital, heart pounding, tears cutting through flour dust on her cheeks. In that cold hallway, she felt something she'd never known before, helplessness that money couldn't fix. Meanwhile, across the city, Lily, still in Ava's world, was trying to keep her secret from falling apart. A charity gala was scheduled that night, and Ava's father demanded her presence. You'll smile, you'll speak, and you'll represent this family, he ordered. Lily nodded, swallowing hard. As she stood before the mirror, she saw Ava's reflection staring back at her, flawless, poised, untouchable. Yet she could feel her own pulse racing beneath the borrowed perfection. At the gala, under chandeliers and murmured compliments, Lily walked among people who measured worth in brand names and last names. A woman approached her. Ava, darling, you've grown into such a refined young lady. Lily smiled politely. Thank you. Her words were calm, but her mind was elsewhere, on her mother, her neighborhood, the scent of warm bread. She felt like an imposter in someone else's dream. Back at the hospital, Ava sat by Lily's mother's bedside. Machines beeped softly. The nurse entered with a clipboard. Are you her daughter? Ava hesitated. Yes, she whispered. The lie burned her tongue, but her heart refused to let go. Yes, I am. The nurse nodded kindly. She's stable now. You should stay with her tonight. Ava reached for the older woman's frail hand, her own tears falling freely. You're not alone, she whispered. I promise. At that moment, miles apart, both girls were living the hardest truths of each other's worlds. Lily, surrounded by wealth yet aching with loneliness. Ava, drowning in fear but learning love's real weight. When morning came, the truth began to crack open. Lily woke to her phone buzzing, Ava's number flashing on the screen. Hello. Lily, it's me. Ava's voice was raw, uneven. Your mom, she's in the hospital. She's stable, but I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Lily froze. What? My mom. Her eyes widened, panic searing through her chest. Where are you? St. Catherine's Hospital, Ava whispered. I'm so sorry, Lily. I didn't mean. I'm coming now, Lily said, grabbing a coat, her voice breaking. Don't leave her side. Lily burst out of the mansion, ignoring the driver calling after her. For the first time in 2 days, she didn't care about appearances. She just needed to get home. When she arrived, She saw Ava sitting by her mother's bed, face streaked with tears, hands clasped tightly around Hayes. Lily stopped at the door, watching silently. For a moment, anger and gratitude fought inside her. Anger that Ava had entered her world. Gratitude that she'd stayed. She needed someone, Ava whispered, noticing Lily's reflection in the glass. And I couldn't leave her alone. Lily stepped closer, her eyes softening. You did good, she said quietly. Better than I could have hoped. The silence that followed was heavy, not uncomfortable, just real. They both realized then that the switch had stopped being an experiment. It had become a bridge. Lily sat beside her mother and held her other hand. You did something kind, she said, her voice trembling. Something most people wouldn't even try. Ava shook her head. She saved me first. You both did. In that sterile room, surrounded by beeping monitors and half-lit hope, two girls from opposite worlds finally met, not as rich and poor, but as human and human. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and wilted flowers, the kind hospitals always seemed to carry, that blend of sorrow and fragile hope. Lily sat beside her mother's bed long after the doctor had left, eyes fixed on the rhythmic rise and fall of her chest. Ava sat opposite, her posture small, her voice quieter than the hum of the machines. You shouldn't have had to go through this, Lily murmured. Ava looked down at her flower-stained shoes. Neither should you. The truth sat between them, unspoken yet alive, a secret too heavy to hide much longer. Hours passed before Lily's mother stirred. Her weak eyes fluttered open and landed on Ava. Then Lily. Confusion crossed her face. There are two of you, she whispered faintly. Lily smiled softly. It's a long story, Mom. Rest now. But her mother's hand reached toward Ava. Thank you, she said, for staying when she couldn't. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. She wasn't supposed to get hurt, she whispered once her mother drifted back into sleep. Ava shook her head. No one was. But maybe this happened for a reason. Outside, morning light filtered through dusty windows. Lily and Ava stood in silence until Lily finally sighed. We need to switch back, before people notice. Ava nodded, though her heart sank. Yeah, I guess pretending can only go so far. They left the hospital together, the city stretching awake around them. For the first time, they walked side by side, not as a rich girl and a poor girl, but as two people bound by something deeper. When they reached the bakery, Lily paused. I owe you, she said quietly. Ava smiled faintly. No, you don't. You showed me what life feels like when it's real. Lily tilted her head. And you showed me how heavy loneliness can be even when everything shines. That night, back in their rightful homes, both girls felt the ghost of the other's world clinging to them. Ava looked at her reflection in the mirror, flawless again, hair brushed, perfume perfect. But she didn't see beauty. She saw emptiness. And behind it, guilt. She picked up a phone and called her father. Dad, she began, voice trembling. Do you ever think, maybe we've got it all wrong? What do you mean? He asked, distracted as always. I mean, what's the point of building towers if people can't even afford to stand under them? He went silent. Ava, where is this coming from? From living for 2 days, she said softly. Really living. Meanwhile, Lily sat by her mother's bedside again. The doctors said she'd recover, but the bills were piling high. When a nurse came in with a file, Lily braced herself and froze. The hospital charges were marked paid. No name, no signature. Just one word on the receipt. Anonymous. She didn't need to ask. She knew. Tears blurred her eyes as she whispered into the quiet room. You didn't have to do that, Ava. The next day, Ava appeared at the bakery again. No makeup, no chauffeur. Just her, the real her. Lily met her outside, holding the paid receipt in her hand. You shouldn't have done it, she said softly. I wanted to, Ava replied. You showed me what generosity looks like when you have nothing. I had everything, and I never use it right. Lily looked at her, searching for words. You're different now. So are you. They both laughed, the kind of laughter that breaks tears apart and rebuilds them into something gentler. But their peace didn't last long. As they walked down the street, a voice called out, Ava Kingsley. It was one of Ava's father's assistants, eyes wide with shock. Your father's been looking everywhere for you. What are you doing here? With her? Lily's heart dropped. Ava's world was crashing into haze, the secret unraveling. I'll explain, Ava said, straightening her shoulders. But not with lies. The assistant frowned. You're coming with me. Ava took Lily's hand, squeezing it once. Whatever happens, thank you. You gave me my soul back. They walked toward the waiting car, two figures against the blur of the city, one stepping back into the world she'd escaped, the other watching as truth marched closer. Be honest, could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Ava's father stood by the grand window of his office when she walked in, marble floors gleaming beneath her hesitant steps. Lily's scent of bread and rain still clung faintly to her clothes. The assistant closed the door behind her. Silence stretched. Where have you been? His voice was calm, but beneath it lay fury barely restrained. Do you have any idea what your disappearance has done to this family's image? Ava met his gaze, her voice steady yet soft. I wasn't lost, Dad. I was just finally found. He frowned. Don't start with riddles. I wasn't at some party. I was living someone else's life, she said. A girl who works harder in a day than most of us do in a year. A girl who still smiles when everything hurts. Her father stared, disbelieving. You what? I switched live with her, just for 2 days. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crack glass. He slammed his hand against the desk. Do you have any idea what you've done? You could have ruined us. No, she said firmly. I think I just saved myself. For a moment, her father's anger faltered. Ava's eyes shone, not with defiance, but with clarity. You taught me how to make money, she continued, but she taught me how to make meaning. And for the first time, I want to do something right. He turned away, jaw tight. This is nonsense. Then let me prove it. That evening, Ava left his office with fire she'd never felt before. She called Lily and said simply, meet me tomorrow, same bakery. When Lily arrived, the city was drenched in afternoon gold. She looked tired, but lighter somehow. Ava was already there, sitting on the curb outside the bakery. No makeup, no chauffeur, just a heart on her sleeve. I told him, Ava said. Lily's eyes widened. Told him what? Everything. About the switch. About you. About what I learned. You're crazy, Lily whispered, half laughing, half terrified. Maybe, but for once, it feels like the right kind of crazy. They talked for hours about class, kindness, pain, and how different worlds could still touch without colliding. Lily confessed how powerless she felt pretending to be rich. Ava admitted how empty she'd been pretending to be perfect. Both girls realized that beneath money and struggle, they had the same heart, one that just wanted to be understood. When the evening light faded, a sleek car pulled up to the curb. Ava's father stepped out, his expression unreadable. Lily froze. Mr. Kingsley, she murmured. He approached slowly. You're the girl my daughter switched lives with. Lily nodded, unsure whether to bow or run. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, saw not poverty but strength. You helped her change. Lily swallowed. She helped me too. He turned to Ava. You want to prove this meant something? Fine. Tomorrow, we start a new program. Real scholarships, job placements, not photo ops. We'll call it the Parker Initiative. Lily's breath caught. My name. Yes, he said. Seems fitting. It's about people who work for everything they have. Ava smiled through tears. For the first time, her father wasn't talking about profit. He was talking about purpose. As the sun slipped below the city skyline, the three of them stood together, the billionaire, his daughter, and the girl who changed them both. If you believe love still wins, comment, Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now need to see it. Weeks passed. The city carried on with its noise and neon, but for Ava and Lily, everything had changed. What began as a reckless idea had become something larger, something that reached people far beyond them. The Parker Initiative launched quietly at first, job programs for single mothers, scholarships for low-income students, a bakery expansion that hired workers who had once been invisible to the world. The story spread slowly, whispered through neighborhoods and news feeds. The billionaire's daughter who swapped lives and found her heart. Ava and Lily stood outside the bakery on opening day, the air alive with laughter, music, and the smell of fresh bread. The new sign gleamed above them, Parker and Hope Bakery. Lily adjusted her apron. You really didn't have to name it after me. Ava grinned. It's not after you. It's after what you stand for. Hard work, love, and the courage to dream even when life forgets your name. Inside, Lily's mother sat in a wheelchair, healthier now, smiling proudly at the two girls who had both saved and healed her in different ways. When Ava knelt beside her, she placed a wrinkled hand on Ava's cheek. You came from a world of gold, she said softly, but your heart found its color here. Ava smiled through her tears. I think this is where it always belonged. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Lily and Ava sat by the window watching the rain. It's strange, Lily said quietly. We switched lives for 2 days, but it changed every day after that. Ava nodded, because now we both know what matters. What's that? Lily asked. People, Ava said simply. Always people. They sat in silence, watching puddles ripple under passing cars, their reflections merging like two different stories that had finally found the same ending. When Ava's father arrived, he stood in the doorway for a moment before speaking. You were right, he said to Ava. All my life, I built towers of myself. You and Lily built something that touches the ground, and somehow that's higher. Ava smiled faintly. Then maybe that's what real wealth is, when everyone gets to stand tall. He nodded, the first genuine smile she'd seen in years softening his face. I'm proud of you. Lily turned away discreetly, giving them a moment. She walked to the counter and handed a loaf of bread to a little boy waiting with his mother. Hey, she said warmly. On the house. The boy's eyes lit up. Thank you. Ava watched, her heart swelling. She remembered when she'd once been that frightened girl, unsure how to hold a loaf without dropping it. Now, she watched Lily give the same bread away, with ease, with grace, with love. The bakery door jingled as the last customers left. Outside, the rain slowed to a soft drizzle. Lily leaned against the counter. Do you think people really change? Ava met her gaze. I think they just remember who they were supposed to be. Lily smiled. Then I guess we both remembered. Ava reached for her hand, a gesture simple yet sacred. You know, she whispered, for someone who thought I wouldn't last a day in your life. Lily laughed. You lasted forever. They laughed together, tired, healed, whole. And as night settled over the city, a small bakery glowed brighter than all the skyscrapers above it. Not because of wealth, but because two hearts, one born into privilege, one into struggle, had rewritten what it meant to truly live. In that moment, Ava thought about the countless faces she'd passed without seeing, the countless chances she'd wasted to care. Never again, she promised herself. Never again would she mistake comfort for happiness, or silence for peace. She looked out at the empty street and whispered, Thank you, Lily, for letting me borrow your life, so I could finally find mine. Lily smiled softly. Guess we both found more than we were looking for. Outside, dawn began to break, pale light spilling across the horizon, washing the city clean. A new day, a new heartbeat, a new beginning.